Hey, welcome back to the workshop. For today's project, I'm going to be making a bushcraft / utility knife out of AEB-L Stainless Steel. This particular pattern is kind of based on the Bark River Fox River EXT1, which is a knife I really like. But for my version, I've made the blade a little bit narrower this way, and I've also made the point a little sharper. That's just my personal preference. I like a little bit sharper point than a lot of knives typically come with. So let's get started. The first thing to do here is to get the cutout pattern transferred over to the bar of steel. I pretty much make all of my stock removal knives the same way. So if you've seen my videos before, you know how this is going to go. The outline of the knife is traced onto the steel with a permanent marker, and the center points of what will eventually be the handle pin holes are marked out with a spring punch. Next, the basic knife blank is cut out with the bandsaw. After the rough blank is cut out, the edges need to be cleaned up with the grinding wheel. Next, 1/4-inch holes are drilled in the handle of the knife. This is where the handle pins will go eventually. Additionally, several more holes will be drilled in the tang of this knife, both to reduce weight and to provide a channel for the glue, which will be coming later. Because the handle of this knife features several small tight radius curves, these need to be cleaned up and refined with hand tools. I'm trying a new technique with this knife. This time, I'm pre-cutting the plunge lines with a series of triangular and round files before the main bevel grinding takes place. This is an idea I took from Jay Keaton Knives at his channel Red Beard Ops. The link will be posted in the description below. Next, roughly 45-degree bevels are ground right up to the edge of the knife. This sets the location of the edge. After this, all bevel grinding will take place behind this line so that my main edge profile is not altered or ground away. Well, maybe that's not quite 45 degrees, but that doesn't matter. What does matter is that I've clearly established where my edge is going to be. Now it's time to spend the next several hours grinding in my primary bevels. Okay, at this point, the primary grinding is pretty much done. The initial edge bevel we set before is almost completely gone, and the edge of the knife is down to about 1 to 1.5 millimeters thick. I've polished the finish up to a rough kind of 120 grit-ish finish. And at this point, I think it's ready to go into the heat treat. I slowly heat the blade up to about 1575 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I ramp up the temperature quickly to about 1950 degrees. Then I hold it there for 15 minutes. After that, the blade is quenched in preheated canola oil. I preheat my canola oil by sticking a piece of red-hot rebar into it. Ideally, I want my oil to be somewhere above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Probably right around 130 is ideal. After oil quenching, the blade comes out all crudded over with kind of a hard, sticky, oily, nasty black scale crud. This could be avoided if you wrap the blade in stainless steel foil before you do all this. But stainless steel foil is expensive and I don't have it, so I guess I've just got to deal with the crud. That's okay, it cleans off easy enough. The bulk of the oil scale and carbonization can easily be removed with a wire wheel. Anything that's left has to be taken off with the belt sander. According to my hardness testing files, the quenched hardness of this knife falls somewhere between Rockwell 55 and 60. That's not too bad for a hard-use working knife. If I had cryogenics or some kind of dry ice treatment, I think I could push the hardness of this knife even higher. But that probably isn't necessary for the intended use of this knife. After quenching, the knife is placed in the freezer for a few hours. The idea here is this may help improve the hardness and toughness of the knife by reducing retained austenite. Does this work? I don't know. Finally, this knife is tempered in the toaster oven at about 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 cycles of 2 hours each. If all goes well, this tempering process should result in a knife that's hard enough to retain a good cutting edge, but is also very tough. I want it to be able to take a beating. After the heat treatment is all said and done, the files do indicate that yes, we're still between Rockwell 55 and 60. Did we improve the toughness of the knife? Probably, but it's hard to know for sure. I guess I just have to trust that the metallurgy and science is correct, and the things are happening the way they're supposed to happen. Now that the heat treatment is complete, it's time to move on to the final cleanup and polishing of the blade. Alright, so that doesn't look too bad. Is it absolutely perfect? Well, no. But this is a working knife, not an art piece. I think this will make a perfectly serviceable working tool. The handle scales on this knife are made out of curly figured maple, which I have glued up to thin liners of G10 fiberglass reinforced composite. After the handle scales have been cut out, I temporarily pin them in place and then hand file them to a precise dry fit. I want to make sure that the handles are pretty close to where they need to be dimensionally before I permanently fix them in place with epoxy. Now that the inside profile of the handle is precisely fit, I can go ahead and glue it up and move on to the outside. This handle still has a long way to go. There's a lot of shaping yet to be done. As with all of my knives, I will be gluing the handle scales on with West Systems G-Flex marine grade epoxy. I like G-Flex because it's got a very long working time. You may note that I have also lightly scored the handle pins and the lanyard tube with small grooves cut in with the bandsaw. I believe that this gives an additional point of purchase for the epoxy. If I've done my job well, this handle should be 100% sealed all the way around with a coat of epoxy. That way, no water or other moisture can ever get underneath the handle scales ever. One of the problems I've had in the past is I couldn't keep epoxy out of my lanyard tube in the process of gluing up my handles. Somehow it just seems to get in there no matter what you do. So this time around, I'm pre-filling my lanyard hole with wadded up bits of paper towel. Hopefully, this should keep the glue on the outside. If you're using mosaic pins, don't forget to line up the pattern of the pins before the glue cures. You don't want to have mismatched pins in a matched handle. After that, the handle is lightly clamped and set aside to cure for a full 24 hours. Once the epoxy has cured, the excess ends of the pins and lanyard tube are sawn off, ground flat, and then the final shaping of the handle can begin. They say you're not supposed to use this part of the Harbor Freight belt sander as a contact wheel. I don't know why. Everyone does it, and it doesn't seem to hurt anything. You just have to be careful not to press on it too hard, or it'll cause your belt to come off track. Most of the shaping of this handle will actually be done with a series of curved files. After that, all of the lines will be blended together using sandpaper. Eventually, the entire handle is polished up to about a 1000 grit finish. After that, the handle gets topped off with about 4 to 5 coats of Birchwood Casey True Oil. I really like True Oil as a wood finish because it's a very thick oil. It stays where you put it and it doesn't dribble. Well, I guess that just about does it for this one. If you stuck around to the end, thanks for watching, and I will be right back here in the workshop with another project just as soon as I can. See you then.